Today I want to talk about these new CBN hybrid stones, hybrid CBN bonded stones. Now, I'm working with USA Market to hopefully bring out the best sharpening stones on the planet. And in order to do that, we have to test a lot of different stones, specifically bonded stones, because in my opinion, bonded diamond or CBN are the best on the planet. They lead to the most, in my opinion, the best results. And we'll talk about exactly why. So what are hybrid stones? So you have resin bonded diamond or CBN and metal bonded diamond or CBN. For an example, this is a metal bonded CBN stone. This is basically the resin and the metal mixed together to make a hybrid bonded stone. So I'm testing the metal bonded, hybrid, and resin, and I'm waiting for the vitrified stone. So we will be testing those, which are also a bonded stone. So over time, I'm going to have a lot of different testing on all different bonded stones in order to figure out which one's the best. Now, these things are so close. Any one of these stones are going to serve you extremely well. They are basically the best sharpening stones on the planet. So we are splitting hairs here in order to find the best ones. Now, let's talk about, these stones will be in stock very soon, if not yet. Check the link down in the description if you want to look at them. This set in particular, because this is the set we're talking about today. The other ones we'll talk about on a later day. These ones are the KDTU, like I said, the hybrid bonded CBNs. What's the difference between CBN and diamond really quick? So CBN technically wears a little bit slower than diamond and it cuts a little bit faster. So technically, CBNs are a little bit better than diamond as far as for sharpening knives. Technically, diamonds are a little bit harder, but the CBNs tend to be a little bit better for sharpening. But they are very close together. You can almost just put them in the same bucket together. Okay, so we have this set right here that you can buy that goes from 100 grit or 160 micron / 125 micron to 3/2 micron or 5,000 grit. Now, they also sold separately, you can get a 10,000 grit bonded stone, 2/1 micron. Then they have different versions of these ones, like the gold series and the silver series, right? So there's a lot of different versions. Like I said, we're testing a lot of different stones. Hell, I even have recurve versions from diamond to CBN metal bonded stones, right? I have every different kind of version, and we're gonna figure out, which ones are the best. Now, why are these so dope anyways, right? Like, what makes bonded stones so good? So, a regular diamond plate, right, where it's just a plate with diamonds over the surface. That's what a diamond plate is. These eventually wear out. Another thing is that as you use them, they get less and less aggressive. So from the beginning, from when you first use it to, after you do 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 sharpenings, it's just going to get finer and finer and finer and finer until it wears out. Some of them last very long. Some of them wear out really quick. It just depends on which ones you get and the company you buy them from. So they wear out quick, or not quick. They wear out and can wear out quick, and then they don't keep and hold the same grit that they're supposed to. A bonded stone is the diamonds or CBN is mixed throughout a bond. In this case, it's a hybrid. So it's the metal and resin mixed together. Think about like a chocolate chip cookie where the chocolate chips are mixed throughout the cookie. What, baby?
Or a granola bar.
Or a granola bar. The chocolate chip cookie, holds the chocolate chips and is mixed throughout. Or a granola bar. Same thing with this. The diamonds are the chocolate chips. Now, as you sharpen on this and it wears down, the diamonds are mixed throughout. So you're just going to bring out more diamonds. And then say if you get to a point to where the diamonds are wore down because you've wore down the surface or the top layer of the diamond, you can condition this or flatten it and bring the diamonds back out. And they last very, very long time. Some of these, they could last you a lifetime. You could pass some of these down to your kids or grandkids. That's how long they could potentially last, just depending on how much you sharpen. I have some I've had for years, and I've hardly scratched a dent in them. So these are stones that do last a very, very long time. Now, like I said, we will talk about these other stones, like the freehand stones. This is metal bonded freehand. This is another stone I'll be testing very soon and doing a full video on. But right now I want to talk about the KDTU stones, the hybrid bonded CBN stones, and why, or what I think about them and why I think they're awesome, because I do like them quite a bit. Again, like I said, bonded stones are my favorite. They seem to lead to the highest quality edges. So one thing is that with high performance steels, like high wear resistant, high carbide steels, you need diamond. It requires diamond or CBN. If you use an aluminum oxide or a natural stone on a high carbide steel, just for an example, S90V, Maximet, S110V, so on and so on. Like, there's a lot of them. If you use a stone like that with those steels, you're not going to sharpen into the carbides. Basically what happens is you're going to cut the steel from around the carbides, leaving the carbides exposed. And because the carbides are too hard for those stones, so it doesn't get cut. So as they hang out of your edge bevel microscopically, they will begin to shatter. And when they shatter, that can lead to something that we once thought was carbide tear out. Technically, it's carbide shattering. That's basically what it is. So it leads to a poor performing edge and possibly not even as sharp as you could potentially get it, or definitely not as sharp as you can potentially get it. So with those steels, it requires diamond. And in my opinion, the way these stones are created, because they do cut very well, they wind up leaving the most consistent and best micro serrations that I've found. Personally, for me, the sharpest edges I've ever gotten have been from bonded stones. So, you know, it's just the scratch pattern is, you got to think about like a microscopic serrated blade or a saw blade. There's little teeth at the apex, and, you know, depending on how those are formed, depends on how sharp the edge will be, and also the edge angle and so on. So how do these things cut? So the 100 grit or 160/125 micron, because like I said, they have the 100 grit up to 5,000 grit, and you can get this set right now. And you can buy a 10,000 grit separately, which is 1 micron. So, like I said, check the links down in the description to see if they're available yet. Now, with the 100 grit, yes, it cuts fast. It does cut fast. It sharpens up really well. The thing is, though, is that it's not going to be as aggressive as a regular diamond plate. If you have a 100 grit diamond plate, yes, that will be more aggressive than this. It will cut faster. But this still cuts very fast, and it does very well. You can absolutely reprofile it, no issue at all. It might just take you slightly longer. If you're sharpening something super thick and you want to make it faster, personally, I just, you know, recommend just getting a super aggressive regular diamond plate. But anyways, like I said, you can reprofile on these, no problem. As you move up through the grits, the stones, they do wind up getting to a very luscious mirror polish that has a uniform scratch pattern in it. So even when you get up to 10,000 grit with these, while it still has a reflective edge, it does have a little bit more of a scratch pattern than you might see with some other stones. Now, that, you know, you could refine that a little bit more with stropping compound, or possibly even buying, you know, an extra stone or whatever. But what I have found is that it leads to an incredibly sharp edge, because it's one thing to have a very, very fine edge, so fine that it's mirror polished, but then it's another thing to have scratches over the surface. I used to sharpen edges, just for an example. I used to sharpen edges. I used to do this edge every once in a while where I would mirror polish the edge, and then I would drop my grit and just throw a scratch pattern over the surface of the polish. And basically what it made, in my opinion, what I, you know, it led to like some insanely sharp edges. But basically what it was it was like in between the microscopic serrations, it was polished, and then there'd be a tooth. So I don't know, man, it led to some incredible results. And I think that's what we're kind of seeing here with these. That just happens naturally from these. Now, that being said, I do have some negatives that we are going to go over here in a minute, but all in all, these stones are going to last you forever. They're going to cut extremely well. They're going to lead to some of the sharpest edges you've ever experienced. Now that is Sharp. Oh my goodness. Ooh. And the finer grit stone. So this is something I do with most bonded stones. I want to know how well they're going to do as a honing stone. One thing I like to do with either an edge that I've already sharpened, or even possibly a knife that's fresh from the factory that possibly has a really good edge, but it could be a lot better. There's many cases I get the knife out and it's literally fresh out of the package, and I'll just do a couple gentle passes and I'll get that thing from paper shaving to hair whittling with just a few good passes, especially like on Spydercos. Like if it's a really good steel, you know, because they do a good job with their heat treatment. But if I've already sharpened my edge, and say if I've went out and used my knife, I'll come home and I'll just do a couple gentle passes on the ultra fine resin bonded or bonded diamond stones, and man, it keeps them extremely sharp for a very, very long time. You're able to maintain sharpness, in my opinion, the best on an ultra fine bonded stone. In many cases, I'll even use it more so than the strap. But you know, I'll use them hand in hand together, but I'll use them pretty much equal. And it's just like, it's incredible how long you can keep your edge going, you know, as long as you continue to do that. Because I like to take my edges, and whether it's from the factory or it's something I've already sharpened and used, I like to bring them in, you know, and touch them up a little bit on the stone, you know, give them a little love. And some bonded stones do better than others, right? Some just don't work as good as others. Some work extremely well. But I personally prefer between 3,500 and up grit. You know, 3,500 is basically where I would begin. That would be the last two stones, basically a 3,000 grit and a 5,000 grit stone. You know, you could also get the 10,000, but those are stones that I personally, the 7/5 micron and the 3/2 micron is what I would use to hone my edges and do my burr removal. So one thing and another thing that I noticed, which you could do with other stones technically, when you sharpen, say if you want to sharpen to 1,200 grit, when you go to remove your burr, or 600 grit, doesn't matter, whatever grit you stop at. When you remove your burr, that's a critical moment, right? How well you remove the burr is going to determine the results of your edge and your edge retention. So I have found that when you take a 3,000 grit and up stone, 3,000, 5,000, 10,000, whatever, as long as it's 3,000 and up, to remove the burr, it winds up leading to the crispiest apexes I've ever touched at all. I mean, just absolutely incredibly sharp with a massive amount of bite. And you do have to remove the burr in a certain, you know, way, or, you know, you want to be delicate with removing the burr. You don't want the burr to be ripped off. You want it to snap off or to come off naturally in a way. And there's techniques to do that, and I've shown that on the channel. But these stones, man, they lead to the best burr removals that you could ever imagine. So that's another thing that's great about bonded stones. A ceramic works really good at this as well, but when you've developed a burr and it's time to take the burr off, you don't want to just tear the burr off, right? You want the burr to kind of naturally fatigue and pop off so that it doesn't have any micro tear outs or anything. And I find that the resin bonded diamond stones, the ultra fine ones, so, you know, 3,000 and up, 3,000 grit and up, is the best way to remove a burr to lead to the most sharpest and best results. It's very easy. You'll do basically like a couple stropping passes on there just to fatigue the burr back and forth, and then a couple light forward passes, then hit the strop, and it is insane how clean you can make an apex off of an ultra fine bonded diamond stone. Even if you ended at a medium grit, like 600 grit, even if you ended on a 600 grit diamond plate and then use this to remove the burr, it's amazing. Now, as far as conditioning, right? Two things. One, you do want to get a conditioning stone. It's basically a Nagura stone. They're only a few bucks, but it's just a block, and you scrub the surface of the stone in between sharpenings. You don't have to do it every sharpening, but every few sharpenings, give it a little scrub down. It cleans the pores, brings out the diamonds, and reflattens it a little bit. Now, every so often, maybe like once a year, just depends on how much you sharpen, you might have to flatten it with silicon carbide powder. So you just get a little sprinkle of silicon carbide powder, like 60 grit, a little splash of water, and you mix them around. You can get finer grit. You don't have to get 60. You can get 200, 300 grit, whatever. Sometimes you want to use two different ones, 60 and like a 300. But the point is that what it does is it reflattens them, brings out all the diamonds, and makes them brand new again. Now, I found that if you use the conditioning stone often, you rarely have to flatten them. But from the factory, these ones did require flattening, not because they were thicker in different areas, but just because it seemed like from the factory, the bond was a little bit covering the surface, and I think that might have been on purpose. Some stones I've found that are bonded require flattening right off the bat, and then some don't. I'm gonna try to talk these guys into sending them out where they don't require that. I would prefer to be able to just take them out of the box and start sharpening. So I would consider that a negative, which we do want to talk a little bit more about negatives here in a second. But it is very easy to condition. It's very easy to flatten a stone. And since you have to do it very little, it's not that big of a deal. These are splash and go. So meaning you just splash them and you go. I use soapy water on mine. Soapy water tends to, in my opinion, do the best with bonded stones. It helps keep the particles out from clogging the pores of the stone. So, and you can make it yourself. You just take a little squirt of dish soap, some water, shake it up until you stop hearing the water go back and forth, because the bubbles will expand. You'll hear it right now. Hear how it started out and then it went silent. That means I have plenty of soap. So just standard dish soap. Just standard dish soap and water. Now, as far as the finer grit stones from these, they do lead to a very, very high performing edge that looks beautiful. Now, I have found that they're not as polished as some other 5,000 grit stones. There's a little bit less mirror and it has a little bit deeper scratches, but it's still a mirror edge. However, I have found that in some cases that could potentially lead to even sharper results. Now, this is to be determined still, but what I have noticed is that basically it's like a polished edge with a little bit more of a scratch pattern, which, remember, the scratch pattern is the microscopic serrations. Our goal is to take our edge bevel, cut in a bevel, and leave a microscopic serrated blade. So basically each scratch leads to another serration, and each serration is basically the tip of the saw blade. Now, because these lead to a little bit deeper scratches, not by much, but a little bit deeper, they tend to have more bite. So while it's a polished edge with an incredible amount of bite. It's almost like a mirror polished edge fineness with an incredible amount of toothiness. But now, like I was saying though, the 5,000 grit is not as mirror as you might think. Same thing with the 10,000. It's not as mirror as I would think, but it still is a mirror edge. But damn it, the sharpness, and it looks beautiful. Now, let's talk about the negatives really quick. Yeah. So one, I already said it. You do have to condition these ones from the start. Hopefully I can change that in the future, and that won't be the case. Another thing is that the 100 grit could cut a little bit faster. It's not horrible. You know, and if you got, you know, a 140 Atoma or a Hapstone Start 100, this won't even apply to you. But, you know, technically you'll be just fine with what comes in the thing. But because I test a lot of stones, I can kind of tell that it could cut a little bit faster as far as the first stone. And that goes for the gold series and the silver series that I tested from the KDTU line. Other negatives, they are expensive. They're expensive. However, you have a massive amount of diamonds mixed throughout this stone. Like, I forget how many carats it is, but when I read how many carats, I was like, what? Like, I think it was like 20 carats or something. It was a crazy amount. So there's a lot of diamond in these stones. Don't quote me on that, by the way, but I'm pretty sure it was like that. But because there's a massive amount of diamonds, it's going to be expensive. And then these are stones, like I said, they last damn near a lifetime. Just depends on how much you sharpen. But at the very least, if you sharpen daily, they're still gonna last you like 10 years. So if not longer, 10, 20, probably like 20 years to be honest. I mean, looking at the rate of which some of my other bonded stones are breaking in, they're gonna last a long damn time. So, you know, that's definitely, it makes it more worth the money when you don't have to replace diamond plates, you know, and things like that. And the next thing is, yes, they're expensive, but you're getting the best. I went through spending thousands of dollars on all different stones, trying to find the best. And not even just the best, just ones that I loved, you know, because I seen other people online getting these incredible results and I wasn't getting that. And I wound up finding out in the end, it was because I wasn't using diamonds. Well then, once I found a bonded diamond stones, I never went back because none of the stones I've ever used ever hold up to what a bonded stone does, and the experience you get, and the type of edges you get, and so on. So, you know, to me, it's worth the money, but I can understand why some people think it is a bit overpriced, or not overpriced, but they are a bit expensive. Now, there will be different prices depending on what stones you get, like the different ones. The metal bonded CBN tend to be the most expensive. Resin bonded diamonds seem to be the least expensive. Hybrids are right there in the middle. You know, and obviously CBN will be a little bit more than the diamond. As far as this set goes, hands down, incredible. Absolutely incredible. As time goes on, I'll be testing all these different bonded stones and we'll figure out what is the best bond for you to spend your money on and which ones are the best sharpening stones on the planet. But like I said, we're nitpicking here in order to get there. These are amazing, amazing, amazing stones. And this full set right here is all you really need. This is all you need. If you buy this set, you literally have everything you need. It is expensive, but you have everything you need. Now, like I said, you could always add more stuff later or whenever you want, but you'll have everything you need right there. The one thing maybe I would recommend for certain people is a super aggressive diamond plate to first, you know, reprofile them for super thick edges and things like that. If it's not a thick edge and you're not laying it back to, you know, really, really far, then these will just cut just fine. But anyways, yeah, I think you guys will love them if you guys get them. But like I said, I will be doing a lot more testing, so we'll have a lot more stones we'll be talking about, and we will be comparing them at some point and talking about which ones are the best. Work hard, stay tough. Until next time, peace.